Ethan Cole never liked working the night shift aboard the research ship SS Horizon. The hum of the reactors, the soft blue lights along the floor, and the faint vibration through the metal made the corridors feel alive, like the ship itself was breathing. He had been assigned to maintain the language modules for alien envoys that visited the human fleet. Most days were quiet, routine calibration, small talk with scientists. Nothing more until the night she arrived. Her name was Laura Varen. Representative of the Varen Dominion race, known for telepathic intelligence and strict emotional discipline. Her silver-gray skin shimmered faintly under the ship's lights, and her eyes looked like polished glass. When she spoke through the translator, her voice carried a calm rhythm that made the room feel colder and slower. Ethan's job was simple: teach the translator to understand human tone and idioms. The device recorded word meanings, but it always struggled with emotion. The Varen spoke in pure logic. Sarcasm, humor, or affection confused their systems. To fix that, Ethan had to give examples, real, emotional, human examples. He leaned back in his chair. "Okay, imagine this," he said, half smiling. A human says, "You look nice today." That could mean friendship, politeness, or maybe even romance. Lyra tilted her head. Romance? He chuckled awkwardly. Yeah, like dating. When two humans like each other and spend time together. The translator flashed green, logging every tone and heartbeat sample from him as data. Lyra's eyes blinked slowly. "I see," she said, her voice gentle. "Then you and I are dating." Ethan froze. "Wait, no. That was just an example. You don't have to," but she had already written it down in her neural tablet. Confirmed. "Ethan Cole initiated romantic protocol," she said, completely serious. He groaned, burying his face in his hands. "Oh no, this is going to be a mess." By morning, everyone on the ship knew. The cooks in the mess hall grinned when he passed. The navigation officers whispered, "That's him, the guy who's dating the alien." Even Captain Riley gave him a suspiciously amused look during briefing. Ethan tried to clear things up, explaining it was all a translation glitch. But Laura followed him everywhere, asking questions, taking notes, trying to understand every relationship behavior in the crew's culture. She observed couples during lunch breaks, mirrored their smiles, and occasionally held Ethan's arm when they walked, believing it was required human contact. He nearly tripped over his own feet. "Laura, you don't need to hold on like that." "But humans engage in physical reassurance," she replied simply. "It calms emotional tension." "Yeah, but not in the hallways. Especially not in front of the captain." Her expression softened with what might have been amusement. "You are embarrassed." "Fascinating," he sighed. She wasn't teasing. She was studying. Yet something about her calm curiosity disarmed him. She wasn't mocking him. She truly wanted to understand. When she smiled for the first time, small, hesitant thing, it wasn't mechanical. It felt human that evening. He returned to his cabin, hoping for some quiet. But as soon as he dimmed the lights, a gentle knock came from the door. "Ethan Cole," Lyra's voice said through the intercom. "Permission to enter." He rubbed his face. "Lyra, it's past sleep cycle." "What's wrong?" "I cannot rest," she said. "My translator detected irregular human heart patterns during our session. I wish to understand why humans experience this before sleep." He hesitated, then laughed softly. "You mean?" "Anxiety." "Yes. May I study it?" Before he could answer, the door slid open and she stepped inside, carrying her datapad. She sat across from him, folding her long fingers neatly. Her posture was perfect, too perfect. He sighed again. "Fine, but make it quick." She began asking questions, dozens of them about dreams, loneliness, and why humans feared silence. Ethan answered honestly, surprised at how personal her questions felt. She seemed fascinated not by the science of sleep, but by the feelings behind it. Humans close their eyes even though darkness already surrounds them. She said quietly, "You trust the world not to harm you while you are unconscious. That is vulnerable. Beautiful." He blinked at her. I never thought of it like that. Do Varens sleep? He asked. Not as you do. Our minds rest separately from our bodies. We do not dream. Maybe that's why you're all so serious. He teased lightly to his surprise, her lips curved slightly. Perhaps, but tonight, I will try to dream like a human. Her words lingered in his mind long after she left. Over the next few days, Lura's behavior confused the entire crew. She brought Ethan food during meal breaks. Saying she had observed it as part of bonding, she adjusted her translator. To mimic his tone, and even attempted human humor, though, it came out stiff and strange. When the captain asked her to join a diplomatic call, she introduced Ethan as her chosen human partner. Ethan nearly spilled his coffee in front of the entire delegation. Afterward, he pulled her aside. Lura, you can't keep saying that. But you initiated the bond. It was a translation test. She blinked, clearly puzzled. Then the emotional resonance I feel when near you. That is also a malfunction? Her question caught him off guard. He didn't know what to say. I don't know what that is. She tilted her head, her voice softer now. It feels like warmth, a kind of static in the chest. I thought that was human connection. Ethan felt his pulse quicken. Maybe it is, he said quietly, surprising himself. That night, the ship drifted near the edge of a pulsar storm. The lights flickered and alarms echoed through the corridors. Ethan rushed to the control bay while crew members sealed compartments. The storm's magnetic waves threatened to disable half the systems. He found Lura already there, hands moving gracefully across the control screens. Her calm expression didn't waver as energy surged outside the hull. When another lightning pulse struck, the lights went out completely. In the darkness, he heard her whisper his name. Ethan, your heart rate is spiking. Allow me to assist. He felt her hand cool, steady touch his wrist. A faint glow radiated from her skin, and suddenly his fear began to fade. His breathing slowed, the chaos around them dulled. It was as if her mind reached through the link, merging her calm with his panic for a brief moment. Their thoughts brushed together his confusion, her curiosity, the shared pulse of two beings from different worlds. Then the power returned, and she withdrew her hand. He stared at her, stunned. What? Was that? I shared equilibrium, she said softly. Your emotion was overwhelming. I balanced it. Ethan swallowed hard. You read my mind? Not read, she corrected. I felt. It is new for me. He didn't know what to say. You saved me, he finally whispered. She looked away, her voice faint. You saved me first, when you gave me a word for warmth. After the storm, something between them changed. The crew noticed it too. Laura no longer studied humans from a distance. She walked among them, smiled at their jokes, even joined the mechanics for coffee breaks. And every time Ethan passed, her eyes followed him not with cold analysis, but something gentler, uncertain, alive. One evening, as he worked alone in the observatory, she entered quietly. The stars reflected in her eyes like twin mirrors of light. Ethan, she said, I reviewed our interaction logs. I now understand my error. He turned toward her, curious. You mean about the whole relationship thing? Yes, she replied slowly. But I also understand something else. The error is not unpleasant. He laughed softly. So you're saying you don't mind the misunderstanding? I wish to continue it, she said simply, to learn what it truly means. He froze, unsure whether she was joking. But her gaze was steady, earnest, and warm. Outside the window, the stars burned bright across the endless dark. And for the first time since the misunderstanding began, Ethan realized he wasn't entirely sure he wanted it corrected. The SS Horizon floated quietly between stars, its engines purring like a distant heartbeat. For the crew, the storm was over. But for Ethan, the real turbulence had just begun. Ever since the night, Lura merged her calm with his fear. Something had changed between them. She stopped treating him like a study subject and started behaving like a companion, though she still called him her bondmate. To his embarrassment, every night. When the ship entered its quiet cycle, a soft knock came on his cabin door. Ethan Cole, Her calm voice said each time, "May I enter?" At first, he tried refusing. "Lura, it's sleep time. Humans need rest." "I know," she replied patiently. "That is why I must study it." He sighed, but opened the door anyway. She stepped inside, always carrying her data pad, her silver skin glinting under the low lights. She would sit across from him, legs folded, ready to take notes as if it were an official experiment. "Tonight," she said on the first evening, "I wish to understand dreams." Ethan rubbed his eyes. "You don't dream? We shut down our neural waves and cycles, but we do not see or imagine. We rest in silence." He leaned back on his bed. "Dreams aren't always pleasant. Sometimes they're confusing or even scary." "Then why do you continue to have them?" He chuckled. "It's not like we can stop. Dreams come on their own. They help us remember or release things we hide inside." Her eyes glowed faintly as she listened. "Release. Emotion," she whispered. "That is what humans do in sleep." Fascinating. On the second night, she returned again. "Lura," Ethan said with a tired smile, "you really don't need to do this every night." "I must," she answered. "I wish to understand you." She asked endless questions. What did laughter mean? Why did humans cover themselves with blankets? Why did they stare out windows when they couldn't see anything but darkness? Ethan tried to answer each one, though his voice often trailed with sleepiness. "Blankets feel safe," he murmured once. "They make people feel like they're not alone." She noted that down seriously, then looked at him as he half-dozed. "You do not wish to be alone," she said softly. His eyes opened slightly. "No one does." That night, before leaving, she stood at his door for a long moment. "If loneliness is pain," she asked, "may I stay until you fall asleep?" He hesitated but nodded. She sat on the floor near his bed, silent as a statue, watching the rise and fall of his breathing. Her translator glowed softly, logging each heartbeat pattern. When she finally left, she whispered something the translator barely caught. "He trusts me now." By the fourth night, Ethan stopped pretending to be annoyed. Her visits became part of his schedule. He even brewed an extra cup of coffee, waiting for her quiet footsteps. This time she arrived without her datapad. Instead, she held a small projection cube glowing with starlight. "I made this," she said proudly. "It records what your brain sees during dreams. I wish to try it." Ethan looked at the device, amazed. "You can record dreams?" "Only if you let me connect," she said carefully. "Our minds will share light signals, nothing more. I will not enter thoughts, only observe." He hesitated but finally agreed. The cube rested near his temple, and a soft blue beam connected their neural links. For a few seconds, everything went white. Then he saw flashes as memories, scattered like fragments. His home on Earth, rain on glass, his mother smiling, a girl he once loved walking away. Lura stood in the middle of those images, her eyes wide with awe. "So much. Feeling," she whispered. "It is like standing inside a storm." He tried to speak, but his voice was lost in the dream. The link broke, and he woke, gasping. She looked at him with wonder, as if she had just touched fire for the first time. "That," she said slowly, "was beautiful." Ethan sat up, breathing heavily. "That was my dream, Laura. You saw my memories." "Yes, but I did not take them. I only felt them. They hurt and comfort at once. Now I understand what dreams mean." He smiled weakly. "Welcome to humanity." Days passed. Laura began acting differently. She started humming when she worked, copying melodies she'd heard in his dreams. She greeted crew members with small nods, even laughed once during a conversation with the cook. Though her laugh sounded like a musical chime, Ethan noticed every change. She was becoming more human than most humans he knew. One evening, she approached him at the viewing deck where he was repairing a sensor. The stars shimmered outside like silver dust. "Ethan," she said, "I have been thinking. When I first arrived, I believed emotions were weaknesses. But now I see they give strength. Is that correct?" He smiled. "Maybe emotions make us act when logic says we shouldn't." She looked thoughtful. Then you risked your mind for me during the storm? Because of emotion? Probably, he admitted. I was scared for you. Her eyes softened. Then, I wished to return that feeling. Before he could respond, the lights dimmed again. The horizon had entered another radiation field. The crew called for a temporary lockdown. Ethan grabbed her arm and pulled her close to the shielded wall. You should go back to your chamber, he said. It's not safe here. But she didn't move. I will stay. I do not fear storms anymore. You taught me that. The ship rattled as energy waves hit the hull. Alarms echoed through the corridor. Lura looked at him calmly, even as sparks flew overhead. Your fear returns, she said softly. May I share balance again? He nodded. Her hands touched his temples, cool and steady. Instantly, warmth spread through his chest as their minds connected. His fear vanished like smoke in the wind. Through the link, he saw flashes not of his memories, but hers. Endless silver cities under violet skies, rows of emotionless faces, silence so deep it felt like space itself. And then her loneliness, cold, endless, quiet. When the connection faded, he whispered, You were alone all your life. She looked away. Varen, do not need companionship. But I always wondered what it meant. Now you know, he said softly. She turned to him with that small, uncertain smile. Now I do. After the storm passed, life aboard the ship returned to normal, except for them. They began spending more time together, sharing meals and stories. The crew stopped teasing. Instead, they looked at the pair with quiet respect. Everyone could feel the change, yet something still troubled Lura. She began visiting him earlier each evening, pacing in his cabin, staring at the stars. What's wrong? He asked one night. I am confused, she said slowly. When you smile, my neural field reacts strongly. When you are sad, my circuits ache. Is this still research or something else? Ethan didn't answer right away. He knew what it was, but saying it out loud felt impossible. Maybe that's what humans call connection, he finally said. Connection, she repeated. It hurts and feels good at the same time. That's exactly it, he said with a quiet laugh. Lura approached him carefully, studying his face. Then perhaps I should document this as mutual emotional adaptation, he grinned. Or you could just call it friendship. She looked confused. Friendship. A smaller form of love? Sometimes, or maybe the first step toward it. Her eyes widened slightly, and she turned away. Then, I will learn this step carefully. Later that night, Ethan woke suddenly. His cabin lights were off, but he could sense movement. Lura sat by the window, watching the stars in silence. Couldn't sleep again? He asked softly. She turned to him, her voice quiet. I did not wish to disturb you, but I felt restless. When I close my eyes, I see images that are not mine. Your memories appear again. He sat up. You're dreaming? Yes, she said, surprised. Your dreams are crossing into my neural waves. It seems I have learned too well. He laughed gently. Then you're becoming human faster than I thought. She walked closer, stopping beside his bed. If this continues, I may never return to my old self. Would that be so bad? She looked at him for a long moment. No, she whispered. Not if I stay here. The two sat quietly, watching the stars drift by. The hum of the ship filled the silence, and somewhere deep inside, both realized they were no longer scientist and subject. They were something new, something undefined. Something that belonged to both worlds. As dawn cycle began and the artificial lights brightened, Lura stood to leave. Thank you for allowing my studies, she said with a faint smile. But I believe I am no longer only studying. Ethan smiled back. Then what are you doing now? She hesitated, looking almost shy. Living, she said. When she left, Ethan leaned back on his bed, eyes heavy with sleep. For the first time in days, he drifted into dreams as alive because he knew she'd be out there, awake, probably watching the same stars, finally learning what it meant to feel human. The SS Horizon drifted toward the Varen border, its long journey nearly over. Stars burned bright against the dark, and the silver lines of Lura's homeworld glowed in the distance. For most of the crew, it meant the end of a successful mission. But for Ethan and Lura, it meant something entirely different. Ethan stood on the observation deck, watching the blue planet spin slowly ahead. His reflection looked tired shadows under his eyes, hair messy, expression uncertain. For weeks, Lura had been by his side every night, learning, feeling, and quietly changing. But now, her time with humans was over. The Varen Council had sent a recall order. She was expected to return immediately for debriefing. He heard soft footsteps behind him. "You were awake early?" Lura said, stepping beside him. Her eyes caught the starlight, shimmering like silver pools. "Couldn't sleep," he replied. "You're leaving tomorrow." She nodded. "Yes. The council requires full data transfer. They will want to review everything I learned." He turned to face her. "And what will you tell them?" Her voice was quiet. "The truth," Ethan smiled sadly. "That you studied a human's dreams, shared his memories, and maybe felt something more?" Lura didn't answer. Her gaze dropped to the floor. "They will not understand. Varen do not see emotion as truth. They will erase parts of my memory if they think it interferes with logic." He took a step closer. "Erase? You mean they'll take what you learned away?" "Yes," she said, voice trembling faintly for the first time. "To them, feelings are infection. They will purify me." He shook his head. "That's not right. You're not broken, Lura. You're alive." She looked up, her eyes meeting his. "Humans always speak with their hearts," she whispered. "That is what makes you dangerous and beautiful." Later that morning, the captain called a meeting with the Varen envoy through holographic link. The alien figure appeared, tall, colorless, and expressionless, speaking in perfect, cold rhythm. "Representative Lura Varen," the envoy said, "your mission has reached completion. Return immediately for debriefing and memory cleansing." Lura stood beside Ethan, her hands folded tightly. "I request permission to remain aboard for one more cycle," she said calmly. "There are still emotional behaviors I must study." The envoy's pale eyes narrowed. "You have exceeded your parameters. Human influence has compromised your clarity." Ethan stepped forward, unable to stay silent. "She's not compromised. She's evolved." The envoy turned its hollow gaze toward him. "Human Ethan Cole, your involvement is irrelevant. This experiment has gone far enough." "She's not an experiment anymore," Ethan snapped. "She's her own person now." The captain raised a hand, trying to calm the tension. But Lura's voice cut through the room, soft but steady. "I refuse memory cleansing," she said clearly. "What I've learned is part of who I am." The envoy froze for a moment, then spoke in colder tone. "Defiance is not permitted. You are Varen. You will obey." "Then perhaps," Lura said quietly, "I am no longer only Varen." The connection ended abruptly. The hologram flickered out, leaving the room in stunned silence. Captain Riley exhaled slowly. "That's going to cause trouble," she muttered. "Cole, keep her out of sight until I speak to command." Ethan nodded, heart pounding. Lura turned toward him, her usually calm expression filled with something fragile. "They will come for me," she said. "Then we'll be ready," he replied. That night, the ship was quiet again. Ethan sat in his cabin, head resting on his hands. Lura stood near the window, watching the stars drift by. Her silver glow seemed dimmer now, as if weighed down by the decision she'd made. "Do you regret it?" he asked softly. She turned slowly. "No, but I do not understand what will happen next." He smiled gently. "That's part of being human. None of us really do." Lura walked closer. "When I first met you, I did not understand emotion. I saw it as chaos. But now, I see it as connection. It makes existence brighter, even if it hurts." Ethan's chest tightened. "Then keep that. Don't let anyone take it from you." She looked down. "If they erase me, I will forget you." He swallowed hard. Then I'll remember for both of us. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached up and touched his cheek. Her skin felt cool, but the gesture was warm, human in every way that mattered. Humans touch to show care, she whispered. I learned that from you. He nodded slowly. And you taught me something too. What did I teach you? That not all logic is cold. Sometimes it leads to the heart. The next morning, everything changed. A Varan shuttle appeared near the horizon, broadcasting recall signals. The captain tried to delay them, but Varan ships didn't negotiate. When security arrived at Laura's chamber, she was gone. Ethan found her on the observation deck, standing by the viewport in her white envoy uniform. She turned as he entered. They are here, she said calmly. You must not interfere. You think I'm just going to let them take you? You cannot fight a whole fleet. I don't need to, he said, stepping closer. You just have to say you want to stay. Her expression softened. If I stay, they will brand me corrupted. I will never be allowed to return home. He took her hands gently. Then maybe Earth can be your new home. For a long moment, silence filled the room. Only the low hum of the engines broke it. Finally, Laura looked up, her eyes shining with something unspoken. I used to believe home was where logic ruled, she whispered. But now I think home is where someone waits for you. Outside, the Varan shuttle docked. Metal claws extended toward the horizon's airlock. The intercom blared a warning. Foreign boarding party detected. Ethan grabbed her wrist. Laura, we have to go. But she didn't move. If I run, they will hunt you too. Then let them. I'm not letting them erase who you are. She stared at him for a long second, then finally smiled. Humans are stubborn. Always have been, he said. They ran through the corridors as alarms flashed red. Crew members hurried to lock down sections of the ship. The captain's voice echoed through the intercom. Cole, if you're with her, you better have a plan. I'm working on it, he shouted back. They reached the engineering bay. Laura, connected to the ship's data core, her hands moving fast. I can copy my consciousness to the Horizon system, she said. If my body is captured, my mind will stay free. Ethan's eyes widened. You can do that? Yes, but it will break the link between mind and form. It is dangerous. He grabbed her shoulders. Then don't. We'll find another way. She looked at him quietly. You once told me humans risk themselves for love, Laura. Now I understand what that means. Before he could stop her, she activated the sequence. Light flared around her, her body glowing with energy. The floor shook as power surged through the ship. Laura, he shouted, shielding his eyes. The glow faded. She collapsed forward, her breathing shallow. He caught her, holding her close. Her eyes flickered open, faint silver light fading inside them. Did it work? He whispered. Her voice was barely audible. Part of me is inside the ship now. Even if they take me, I will remain. Here, stay with me, he said desperately. Her hand touched his face again, trembling. Do not be sad, Ethan. You gave me something eternal. He shook his head, tears forming. Don't talk like that, she smiled softly. Humans cry when they love. I will remember that. Then her eyes closed, and her body went still. The Varan soldiers boarded minutes later, silent and efficient. They took Laura's motionless form back to their ship without a word. No one stopped them. The captain placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder, but said nothing. When the ships left, the horizon felt empty. Ethan spent the next days in silence, avoiding everyone. The nights were the hardest, too quiet, too dark. But one night, as he sat alone in the control bay, he heard a faint voice through the ship's intercom. Ethan. He froze. Lure. Yes, the voice whispered softly. Only a part of me remains, but I am here. He smiled, tears in his eyes. You did it. You really did it. I told you, she said gently. I would not let them erase what we are. Then what now? He asked. Now, she said, her voice calm like the stars, we dream together again. The lights in the cabin dimmed slightly, and a soft hum filled the air. Ethan leaned back, eyes closing, feeling her presence like a heartbeat through the ship itself. and for the first time since she left, he slept peacefully because somewhere in the circuits of the horizon, she was still watching the stars with him.